We're live with Restream, talking Trump, talking whatever you want to talk, and talking go to the DMV. How you doing today, Tony?
I'm doing great. Listen, what I like to say is, and by the way, this is the inaugural show, or at least on this particular topic that I'm having here with Jeff on Thursdays on an app called Clubhouse. I've been having what we've called Third Rail Thursdays for about a year and a half now, and I call it that because for those who've lived in an inner city with the subway system, the third rail of the subway is the power rail. If you touch any rail and that rail, you get electrocuted, right? So we call it Third Rail Thursdays because we have the conversations that people say you shouldn't have, right? People say, well, at the dinner table, at the Christmas table, Thanksgiving table, whatever table you're at, they say you shouldn't talk about politics, you shouldn't talk about religion and social issues. Well, I think those are conversations that we all must have, and because we haven't had those conversations, we're in the situation, or I like to say, the situation that we're in now, that everything's kind of run amok. So anyway, just a little bit, just let me introduce, by way of introduction, the man who needs no introduction, Jeff J. Cunningham. Jeff, also known as Jeff the Entrepreneur. I've been working with Jeff for I don't know, well over a year now, just on branding, some other things, and we've just become friends for many years. Oops, that should have been off. For many years, we've been friends, and we just started working together. And we decided that we're going to have this conversation because oftentimes prior to our calls, we wind up having this conversation talking about what's going on in the world. And it's always on Thursday, which is right at the heels of my finishing my show. So I think that the things that we so often avoid are the conversations we need to have. So Jeff, of course, is the branding expert. He's got CLC Consulting, and he's the man if you want to brand yourself, you want to, whatever it is you want to do. I'll let him speak a little bit more to that. My name is Tony Rodriguez. I've been an entrepreneur for 35 years, been a real estate broker for 35 years. I'm in the personal development space for over 25 years, specifically with Tony Robbins as the main point, but of course, mentoring and learning from so many other people over the last 25 years has been absolutely incredible. It's changed my life, and it's allowed me to change the lives of so many other people. I'm a trainer with Tony Robbins. Currently, I'm still a trainer with Tony Robbins for the last nearly decade at this point. And the purpose of my life is to help people grow through what they go through, to leave this world and everyone I meet a little better than I found them. So so Jeff, tell us a little bit about you. So I'm also the founder of Get Up and Grow. You can see it on my name here. If you just hashtag Get Up and Grow on your search bar, you'll find a bunch of podcasts, a bunch of different things that we post on a regular basis, inspiration. And of course, you can join us on Clubhouse as well in the mornings, Monday through Friday. But we decided that we're going to have this conversation talking about politics, talking about social issues, and really whatever's on your mind. Because the cool thing about this app that we're on, we're using Restream right now. And we're streaming to Facebook, we're streaming to LinkedIn, we're streaming to YouTube, we're streaming to X. You can actually ask your question right on the app, and we can address those. I believe we should be able to see those pretty easily. So thank you again for joining us. So Jeff, tell us a little bit about you before we get into the conversation that we're going to be having here on a regular basis on Thursdays.
Yeah, so this is definitely the inaugural to the premiere, the pilot. I will say me and Tony do so many off-air camera. Tony, someone said, help change mine. Definitely Tony left me better when he found me. See, this is why I want to go live with Tony Talks. Forget Tony Robbins. Tony Rodriguez, to me, has been more transformed than that. And I know that's like sacrilegious in the Tony Robbins world, but I'm saying that as a marketing guy. I'll say a little things that are a little outside the thing. But Tony's definitely, I still remember, Tony, meeting you when we went to New York for Breakfast of Champions. And you actually got to see my beginning of me getting taken out to dinner. You saw Brian Murdoch there, who paid for that whole big dinner. And that wound up becoming my $65K consulting deal that launched this whole Changing Life consulting business. And at that moment, I remember you telling me a story about a guy who was about to commit suicide and how you talked to him and how much you cared. And I just knew right from there. I knew you before, and I thought you were awesome and everything. But I knew right from there we'd be not only fast friends. I'm very lucky you haven't worked with anybody before. I still don't think you're enough because this guy is so polished. He should be known more. And you're a true coach where you truly will stop anything you can to a fault of your own, kind of very similar to what I will, and help somebody else out. Like you'll take off your own jacket for somebody and you'll go cold all the time. But that's why I love being with you. And on top of that, we talk a lot of stuff. When we get on our calls, we start talking Trump, what's happening? They're cutting out red dye right now, and they're making America healthy again. And America's not going to be this, cesspool of all this, toxic ingredients. I was eating something the other day, it had canola oil in it, right? And it's so good not to have that. And then also, we both have to go to the DMV. So I know that says nothing about me. I do branding and marketing. I help people make money online through online courses, and that's really all you need to know. But I generally like helping people tell their story, build an offer, make connections. But for right now, I'm very much like you. I want to run for maybe a political office one day. I've made that very clear. If the Lord has that. One thing I will say, you're more spiritual. I'm more Christian based. Nothing against that. I think it's good because we have both. At the end of the day, when you said people don't talk about religion, they don't know about politics, and what's the other thing they don't talk about?
Just social issues.
Yeah, I think it needs to be talked about, because if not, then we'll wind up communism, right? That's freedom of speech, right? If we don't talk about religion, we're going to die. Some people, in my belief, are going to go to hell. So we got to talk about that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then some social issues really need to be talked about in a fun way. And one thing that I like that some of my predecessors, whether it's Patrick and David, who talks the news, me and my brother started a show where we just talk news headlines. And I did not think we'd get to this point where Trump would win. I thought they're going to rig the election. I thought this would happen. So this is the first time I've been begging my brother to do this show with me. He's having a second kid on the way. So Tony, it's more fitting because Tony is so good at it. So that's all I got to say there. So
well, I appreciate having you on here, and Dana, who's commenting, she's amazing. I guarantee you, I've told you her story before, and you've heard of her through me. I met her actually at a Tony Robbins event. It was a really powerful experience, and it was talking about a spiritual event was amazing. Dana's amazing. She's an inspiration to me and to so many people. Matter of fact, one of the quotes that I attribute, one of my quotes, right, that I came up with was in a conversation with Dana, because Dana's an inspiration to a lot of people. And she at one point said, Tony, I'm not an inspiration. I'm just trying to live my life. I said, yeah. And by doing that, you're inspiration to a lot of people. So not to get into Dana's story, Dana, I don't know if you're still here listening or not, but comment and I'll see you. Dana was in the Navy, joined the Navy when she was 18, and less than a year into it, she was beaten, raped, and thrown off a cliff and left for dead. So she's been in a wheelchair her whole life, but she still continues to heal. They didn't think she was going to survive, and here she is 30 plus years later, still going strong and healing and finding just through Joe Dispenza and through a lot of other things, she's found ways. I mean, she starts moving parts of her body that she never moved before. So she's incredibly inspirational. So the quote that I came up for is just because what Dana, I don't know if you can remember that, but let me see if I can recall it. Just because the extraordinary has become ordinary for you doesn't mean it isn't extraordinary for someone else, right? Because just watching her, and I've had the occasion, she spent time at my house, we've traveled together, and just to see how powerful and how strong she is, and how she overcomes the things that we take for granted. Right. It was a great reminder. So thank you, Dana, for being here. I love you, my friend. And I can't wait to see you. Sorry, I missed you in Colorado last time I was there, but we will be seeing each other soon, I am sure. So,
by the way, before you go, this is what I want to say what I love about Tony. Tony's very much like me. My mission statement when I started this was inspire those always. And if people inspired me, I was going to share their story more. And Tony just did that. Yeah, I feel like you're an older, wiser version of me, Tony. Although I figured out some more things technically, I'm just younger. So I really have felt that. And by the way, Dana, that story inspired me. And yeah, it shows the following you have, Tony. When you tune up, whether it's Clubhouse showing up consistently, certain things you've had, people just follow you, man. And they say stuff to it because you definitely have a God-given gift. And Tony Robbins, Grant Cardone, all these names, Patrick David, they make them kind of a little harder to access. But one thing that me and you do, probably to a fault, we make ourselves easier to access. But by that, we both had a lot of impact. And I'm learning how not to do that now. We have executive assistants. We're running ads for myself, and we'll probably get you there pretty soon too. So
yeah, working on it. So the conversations that, like I said, these conversations that we have are difficult. And there's a lot of people that says, I don't watch the news. I don't pay attention. It doesn't affect my life. Well, the reality of it is, the socialist is what happens in politics, what happens in domestic policy, foreign policy. We see it now with trade, with the trade tariffs and international trade. All of these things actually ultimately do affect us. And just because we avoid them, we can't be that little kid in the closet with his eyes, or sitting in the corner covering his eyes. And if I don't see you, you can't see me. That's not the way it works. We're in a global economy now, and everything that happens here affects, and other places of the world affect us as well. So I think that we need to have these conversations, as uncomfortable as they are. We must have them, because they all affect us. Because we're not just affected by, people think, well, our health. Well, our health isn't just whether we work out or not. Our health isn't just what goes into our mouth and what we swallow, what we eat and drink. It's what goes into our eyes. It's what goes into our ears. It's what we're reading, who we're listening to, what we're spending time around, and just avoiding the news and avoiding what's going on. And by the way, I'm not telling anybody to be a news junkie. God knows it's all bad news anyway. Watch 10, 15 minutes, know what's going on, and then move along and live your life accordingly. But I think it's important to have these conversations, these difficult conversations, because they do affect all of us, whether we agree with it, whether we want to play along or not. It doesn't matter. It's affecting us, right? It's affecting us with higher taxes. It's affecting us with higher insurance rates. It's affecting us with higher tariffs. It's affecting us with, friends that go off to war at times, and our children, our parents, our brothers and sisters that are fighting for the very rights that we enjoy in this country. Many of those which are at jeopardy. And there's been so much disparity. And this morning, one of the topics of conversations, it's always pretty heated, because we have most of the week we talk about uplifting events and personal development and everything else, but on Thursdays we talk about this, and it's pretty contentious even with our regulars. And I tell people all the time, listen, we're friends. We may be having a spirited conversation here, but we're actually friends, and we need to bring that back. Our politicians on the left and the right need to be able to have civil conversations, discussions, and debates over topics, and be willing to change their mind when new information is provided. They say that a sign of intelligence is the ability to accept new information, listen to it, and then change your mind if indeed you discover new facts. In today's world, and this happens on the left and the right, is it doesn't matter if there's something new that's uncovered that changes the narrative, that changes your perception, or changes the facts. So many people just stick to their guns, and it's unreasonable. It's irrational. It's happening a little bit more on the left these days than the right. We've had a bit of a flip in that, where the Republican Party was known as the war party. Right now, it's actually the left. It's kind of a crazy twist, and we're seeing everything from liberals destroying each other's cars and getting pissed off about it. Destroying Teslas. We're seeing people complain about tariffs, not really understanding what's happening with tariffs. And they say, well, tariffs don't work, understanding that. And by the way, I'm just dropping a bunch of different things here, Jeff, options of what we can grab onto. And if anybody wants to comment, we can certainly dig in.
Well,
so you got
and this isn't really news, but Jake Paul is going to fight Canelo Alvarez. They're finalizing in May for my birthday.
Jake Paul isn't really a legitimate boxer, in my opinion.
Well, what if he beats Canelo Alvarez? If he does that do
if he beats him, then I'd be impressed, because that fight that he had against a 65-year-old Mike Tyson, or 62, whatever it was, and you can tell that Mike Tyson was literally biting his hand, because like, oh, I just want to kill this guy, but I can't.
I feel so bad to say this, but I think Mike Tyson took a paycheck. Mike Tyson,
oh, he absolutely did.
The one we saw punching, like even you at 65 or me at 65, we would have punched Jake Paul more. I really feel like he definitely held back. I feel like it was a whole dog and pony show.
Dude, he was literally chewing on it. He kept biting his glove, like just to restrain himself. It was definitely a check. If you saw him training 2 weeks prior and you saw the fight, it was an
He was just so non-committal. And there were moments when Jake Paul did leave him. They've slowed it all down. You saw it. When he could have just unloaded on him once or twice. Not to say that Jake Paul. I thought Jake Paul would have won a fight with Tyson anyway at this age. Like, I thought it was unfair with Jake doing what he did. Jake's a marketing guy. He's a marketing guy who can throw a punch. That's exactly what it is. And that's why I like him. But I 100% went out calling out. I got my own boxing match by calling out Jake Paul. And then I have so much respect. I did a junior amateur bout. And I'm so thankful that I could. I could have wound up probably paralyzed too, not knowing what I was doing. Wound up losing the fight. but it made me give a lot of respect training up to it, seeing a lot of journeyman fighters who are probably better than Jake Paul. But because best known beats best, there's a lot of better fighters. Jake Paul, same thing with Trump. The reason why Trump just gets newsline and he's best known, okay, beats the best. He might not even be the best president, okay, but he was the best known, so he bet in there. But like that's I'm a big marketing fan, you know. So
no, I agree with you. You know, the Jake Paul thing, and even Canelo, it's smart for him to take that fight only because it just puts his name more out there. I just hope he doesn't throw the fight the way that Mike Tyson does. And I'm not going to take anything away from Jake Paul. Obviously, he trains. He knows he is a boxer. He knows how to box. But I don't put him at the level of a Canelo. I don't put him at the level of a Mike Tyson. He's more of an amateur, maybe a very good amateur, but he's not a pro boxer. He couldn't stand toe to toe against a pro boxer. Neither could I. I couldn't stand toe to toe.
I disagree. I disagree. He stood toe to toe with Tommy Fury, who you can say whatever you want was a pro boxer. Literally, he lost to him, but he also knocked Tommy Fury on the canvas. And Tommy Fury was doing everything. Tommy Fury, I watched that whole fight, was so excited that he won that fight. Didn't even know if he won it or if they're going to give it to Jake. Okay. And I actually think that started to make Jake Paul, and he started to get respect because he actually fought a legit boxer and lost. And people started to like him. But
again, I don't follow him enough.
Then he went back to fighting all the freaking retired MMA fighters, right? Or retired boxers. He is fighting before, and Canelo Alvarez says that just actually one thing that me and my brother would do, and Patrick Ben David does. We don't have a big studio, but we share. Let me see if I can do this. If I can share here. This is like the news. See, so he's going to be fighting Julia Cesar Chavez. You know who that is?
Yes.
So, and by the way, we'll talk about this next time. So Canelo fell through, but it just popped up on my thing. Also, another thing, I don't know if you can see this. Can you see the VT News?
No, I'm only seeing the Google that you have up because I can close this one and see if you open another one. Here we go. Yeah, go ahead. You do it again. I have to access it, but
so yeah, here, let me share it again. So if I go share. And now we go to the VT News. Oh, because I'm doing, instead of my entire screen, my brother used to yell at me all the time. So now you can see VT News, right?
Yeah.
So you ever check this out, vtnews.ai?
I haven't.
So it's cool because where they get their news headlines, just like PBD, you know, it's PBD podcast, shout out to them. They talk a lot of the very pressing topics. Well, what they did was they made an AI platform, and it can show you how much the left is covering it and how much the right is covering it, or vice versa, right? So it's interesting. Really cool. And they put a lot of different. So U.S. jobless claims rise to amid economic crisis. And then they put these, and then we can pick out some topics going forward on different things, and we can actually talk to news headlines. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, definitely. And by the way, Dana, I love what you said. She takes the Mother Teresa approach, and I'm not sure exactly we feel the negative. So Mother Teresa famously, when she was asked to march against the war, she says, "No, I won't march against the war. I will march for peace." Right. So it's just a different way of looking at it. And Dana, I agree. I'm not saying that everybody should be having these disputes and these arguments. I'm just saying that we need to come to a place where we can have this civil discourse, civil discussion where we can present our points without hatred, without name calling. You know, just again, yesterday I was seeing, I forget what her name is, the woman, the congresswoman that shaves her head. That's part of the what do they call it? The squad. Again, saying how our president is a dictator, and that's absolutely not true. I mean, if we look back, the previous administration between Fauci and everything else that happens, and and they say, well, they're trying to silence. You know, people are disappearing. First of all, nobody's disappearing. There are people getting deported that should be deported, and that's something, maybe a topic that we can talk about today, Jeff, because this guy that the congressman went down to try to bring him up. Now 4 more congressmen are down there. Here are these American politicians that didn't show up in North Carolina for the hurricane. They didn't show up in Florida for the hurricane. They didn't show up in Maui for the wildfires. They're not showing up for the American taxpayer that they're supposed to be representing, but they're going to El Salvador to try to bring back an MS-13 member, which, by the way, people say that he's not an MS-13 member. Let's just point out that he was an MS-13 member in El Salvador when he came here. When he was here, he got a deportation order, so he got his due process. So in 2019, he was supposed to be deported. He didn't show up. He escaped He escaped it for another 6 years, got arrested, even though he had deportation or got arrested for beating his wife. He was let go anyway instead of being deported because there was the deportation order. Then when he finally got arrested this last time, he was hanging out with MS-13 members, and then he was deported. And now we have our American politicians spending our
What does
tax dollars.
MS-13 stand for?
It's like Salvatruche, whatever. It's a South American, a violent Venezuelan Venezuelan. I think it started in Venezuela. It's a very violent street gang, and it's massive. Just like Tren de Aragua is up here now, and they're massive and they're very violent. So this guy was deported. They're trying to bring him back. Judges, district court judges are trying to rule from the bench. It doesn't make any sense what's happening. But this is what we're dealing with. And none of it makes any sense that our American politicians are taking our tax dollars, wasting them to go down to El Salvador instead of staying home and doing the public's business, the taxpayers' business. They're trying to bring back a known MS-13 member that, what's going to happen. The minute he gets back here, he's just going to get detained by ICE and he's going to get deported for being here illegally anyway. So it's a moot point. And here we have, but the frustrating part is we have American politicians burning our tax dollars, wasting time, trying to, and by the way, if the president of El Salvador says, no, we're not letting him go, guess what? He's a citizen of El Salvador. It's akin to an act of war if we go in and take one of their citizens out without the permission of the government. So, and it's just madness that there's these protests around. There's this thing going on in Texas of the kid that brought a knife to a track meet, stabbed another student in the heart and killed him. GoFundMe accounts were set up for the victim and for the killer. The killer got twice as much as the victim. We are dealing with some societal rot in this country where people forget. It's like the respect is gone. Self-respect is gone. Respect for authority is gone. You repeatedly see videos online of people attacking police and verbally attacking them, like, what you going to do, you mother, all the things that shouldn't be said to a police officer. At some point, we're going to have to take the gloves off the cops or the handcuffs off the cops, and the cops are just going to have to start, putting people back in line. And I know how that sounds. That sounds mean,
yeah. Well,
but
here, one thing I'll push back. And by the way, do you ever watch the PBD podcast?
Occasionally, yeah. I've watched several episodes.
Before we do this, one thing my brother did, because me and you are very similar, he set the tone. So it's like, hey, we're going to talk about MS-13 today. We're going to talk about the Texas shooting and stuff. And we'd set whatever. We're talking Canelo and Jake Paul so people know, and then we can edit it back later on. So we're not just so going forward. But the one thing I will say about exactly what you're saying right now is, yeah, man, I think like all these stories and what we see out there is the news. And the reason why me and my brother started this is started to obviously listen. It's you can't even hate on it because people look at a travesty and look at it twice. It's just human nature, right?
Right.
That if we can offer an inspiring other hope that all this bad stuff is happening, here's the good side to it, right? Kind of it. And I inherently believe most humans, unless you're like demonic possessed, are good, right? They want good. Even some of the people that I don't agree with politically or something like that, I believe they just sometimes they're a victim of circumstance. They grow up, they see, they feed their mind stuff. That's all they believe, right? Because they've seen it all. So like until you show them and if I come off so what's it called, crazy one way, like I come off so Jesus is the only way, right? I'm gonna turn everybody away, right? Do that. But if I come off a way of like, hey, I really believe it's important that we really examine like where we really think we go when we die this life. Like, do we have another life out of this? It's a different conversation, right? People do it. Debatable, but it's different than me saying, you got to go to church, you're going to sin and burn, right? So what I want this show to be, this is what me and my brother's show, and I can send it, but to be, is kind of that. Set out the tone. This is it. These are the kind of traits. So we can actually invite people to have these conversations, right? Whether it is, one thing I always wanted with my brother, which I always wanted live call-ins, right? And my brother didn't want that. So maybe that's one thing we can pull in.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. One of the things, so to give you, and again, there's so much going on constantly, and we could certainly tackle one comment at a time. But one of the things that I think is plaguing this country, and as much as, and by the way, I'm an immigrant as well. I came here, my parents immigrated here legally, albeit legally, in the late 70s. I am an immigrant. So I'm a naturalized citizen, and I'm proud to be an American citizen. there's a
By the way,
process
by the way,
to coming in legally.
Americans all immigrants anyway, right? We're all here
Right.
from immigrants, right?
Right. At some point, at one point or another. But we're not going to go back to that, because then we're going to have all the people saying, well, give all the land back to the Indians. Okay, well, that's obviously not going to happen.
I mean, by the way, I'm not against that either. Let's go build another thing. Like at the end of the day, I always like to do a contrasting thing. My point is saying it's like, I don't know. Like, here's the thing. Like, we give the Indians the casinos, right? Is that what it was?
Listen, you want to talk about people that were mistreated and mishandled, and they still are. I think the American Indian is very big part of that. And but again,
I think you can look at any race and point to that. You can look at your Portuguese, right?
100%. Portuguese, we were conquered by the Moors for 800
and
years.
You can look at the white race, whatever that is. The white people, now we're getting like vilified right now, right? It's like,
listen, you know who the first slaves were in this country? They were Irish. Irish were the first slaves in this country.
Wow.
The slavery has been around for a long time, and there's more people in slavery today than ever before in human history. Except people choose not to look at it that way. They choose not to look at where our iPhones and Nikes are being made in China, that the buildings are basically prisons and people aren't allowed to leave. They sleep underneath their desk and they work in shifts. Slavery exists today. 13-year-olds digging cobalt out of the ground, lithium out of the ground in the Congo, and diamond mines and gold mines and everything else. There's sex slavery going on in the world today that probably represents more people in the sex trade than there were, slaves in the United States. There's a lot of that going on. So
it's crazy that's not getting talked about too.
Yeah, it doesn't get talked about enough. The selective outrage that's out there in the world because of it is kind of daunting. So much so, like, just people seemingly don't have enough to worry about in this country. But you want to talk about women's rights? Well, go to places in the world that women's rights are non-existent, right? You want to talk about certain things. People don't understand. The conversation I was having this morning, and again, maybe I'm going to stay away from that one for this weekend, for this week. But I'll say this on the immigration front. The reality of it is we've probably got anywhere between 20 and 30 million. They say, because remember there was 11 million in September August or September of 2023. The number was at 11 million plus a million gotaways. And then they're still saying that 2 years later, that's all it was as well. But the number's probably closer to 20 or 25 million. So there's a lot that comes into play with that. It affects everything from housing. You can't rent an apartment now anywhere in near any of the bigger cities anywhere. In New Jersey, you can't rent a 2-bedroom for less. Yeah, there we go.
On Twitter right here. Live with Restream. With a horrible title, by the way. Horrible.
Yeah, I know. We didn't put a title. It's the first one. So we can probably go in and change that anyway. Oh, there it is. Live with Restream. That's right. I could have changed it. Let's see. What should we call it? Should we call it Third Rail Thursdays, or let's talk?
No.
Talk
so
about
what
it
you want to
Thursdays?
do is you want to do SEO. So I'm a marketing guy, okay, and I'm decent. So you want to do stuff that's trending and things. So
the title, what should it say?
Right.
Talk to me. I'll type it in.
So I would do like exactly what you already talked about. So like Trump dictator, even though you just touched on it, you touched on a lot of stuff. What else? What else we could put? I know I really want to get to the red dye and them doing that and taking out dye and the whole thing. You could put Jake Paul versus Canelo. Like, that'll get people to click, even though we talked about it, right? This is all marketing, clickbait, whatever you want to call it. But like, and then whatever thing, and then at the end you could put the name of the thing, Third World Thursdays, right, or whatever the title is.
Third Rail.
Third Rail Thursdays. Yeah.
So I'm putting in, is Trump a dictator? And I'm going to put in immigration. On description, immigration. I'm going to talk about immigration. I'm going to talk about housing.
And normally we do this before we start. This is totally live with Restream. As you're typing that in, definitely. And what?
All right, let's see. For now, we'll just do that. See if it change the title. So the conversation that I was having with someone today is they were saying, well, Trump's a dictator. I'm like, he's not. Give me some examples. They started giving some examples. I said, you got to stop.
Yo, I'll fight back. By the way, part doesn't want to do this because I think I can see, I love Trump. I voted for Trump. I can see dictatorish tendencies why people say that. I don't think they're totally crazy for saying that. Okay.
Well, they're not. But when we just came out of, because this morning they were saying, well, he's disappearing people. No. Let's be clear. He's taking illegal aliens that he was taking him, whether he take him to Guantanamo, whether he's taking and the criminal illegal aliens, he send them down to El Salvador. That's the version of disappearing because he's silencing his opposition. First of all, that's nonsense. He's not. The one who silenced the opposition was the previous administration that everybody's getting canceled. The cancel culture is a leftist thing, not a conservative thing. That's kind of what was happening. Is people were losing their jobs. People were losing their jobs for not getting shots. People were losing their jobs for speaking out against a shot that didn't work. Doctors were losing their jobs, their credibility. They were losing everything. So the cancel culture and the disappearing of people is not, it's a progressive thing, if you want to call it progress, a progressive / liberal thing. So I was speaking to a client yesterday who had leased a property from me, and he said, Tony, he called me up, and he's from Nigeria. He calls me up and says, Tony, I need to ask you a question. It says the renewal is coming up, but I don't. What do I do, because our visa is expiring, and because of this president that's here now, we reapplied, but the application was canceled, and we have to reapply again. So it might take 2 or 3 months, and I don't want to sign a new lease. I said, no problem. I told him, I said, listen, what we'll do is we'll just ask for a lease extension for 2-3 months until your application goes through and you get approved, and then you'll sign the lease afterwards. So that's no big deal. So I walked him through that, but then I reminded him, I said, look, the reality of what's happening in today is that this is not this current administration. This current administration is simply trying to clean up the mess from the last administration. I said, the reason that your application was likely canceled and it's being held up is because right now INS or whatever department, DHS or whatever department's handling it now, is overrun by 20 million people that are here illegally because of the open borders. The open borders caused the problem that now this administration is trying to fix. So if you're going to point a finger as to why you're having a hard time getting your application approved, you got to point back to the last administration that created the problem that's now trying to be cleaned up. And the reality is he wants to do the right thing. He says, Tony, because if our visa doesn't get renewed, I'm going to leave and then come back under a visa. Because what a lot of people don't understand, what they don't know, is if you overstay your visa in the United States and you're either deported or you leave on your own, you can't come back. You can't get another visa for 10 years. You have to stay out of the country for 10 years. So he's trying to do the right thing. And I think it's going to work out. But the reality of it is what's happening right now is this administration is trying to clean stuff up. The fact that we have so many people that are fighting against Trump and fighting against Doge and hating on Elon, it's just crazy. The left has absolutely flipped their lid. The people that were driving around the Teslas and the electric cars now hate Teslas, hate electric cars, and they're destroying each other's properties. And then they're selling their Teslas, like that guy Kelly, the congressman or senator, whoever the heck he is, I guess, Congressman Kelly, got rid of his Tesla. And you know what he bought? A freaking Yukon, like the most gas guzzling vehicle that America makes. He went from no fossil fuels to the one that burns the most. I mean, the only thing you could have gotten that was worse than that is an old style Hummer. I just don't understand. But people have absolutely lost their minds. They don't understand that we need to get a handle. We need to get a handle on spending. We need to get a handle on immigration. We need to get a handle on crime. We need to get a handle on so much of what's happening in this country that's really dividing us, because that's the other thing that's important to recognize. All of these things that are happening with MS-13 and Tren de Aragua and the immigration and everything else, this is a ploy by the politicians and the media to continue to divide us, because the people divided are easy to conquer. A people united stand tall, right? And it's almost like the powers that be, I'm going to say on the left, are anxiously waiting for the supporters of the right to take action into their own hands. they're standing in the streets, they're blocking traffic, they're closing universities, they're keeping people from going in, they're attacking, or and interfering with Jewish students in particular. They're being anti-Semitic. That I remember 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, that was illegal. That was a hate crime. Now it's legal to have to be hateful, but only towards the Jews, or only towards the Christian. Everyone is safe except the Christian white male, right? Everybody, we're living in a crazy time, and we just need to understand that the agitators want trouble. There's a great analogy, or a great story of that, where somebody took 100 black ants and 100 red ants, and they put these ants in a jar, and they put them all in. They just threw them all in, and inevitably the red ants migrated to one side of the jar, the black ants migrated to the left side of the jar, and they went on their busy life, doing what they're doing, building and gathering food and whatever. They'd cross each other, climb on top of each other, no problem, but they're living in their own size, left and right. All of a sudden, somebody grabs the jar, shakes the jar, and the ants start fighting and killing each other, because the red ants think it was the black ants. The black ants thinks it was the red ants, so they're trying to kill each other. When the problem is the agitator, the person that shook the jar. We have politicians and media shaking the jar constantly, trying to get people to react and really attack each other. And that's what we need to keep a focus on, and understand that they're trying to manipulate us. They're puppeteers, and when you don't move and react the way they want you to, they yank it even harder, and they cause something else. As an example, you keep saying, not you, but if somebody keeps saying this guy's a dictator, he's going to bring us back to, he's like Hitler. Well, then there's some lunatic out there that is starving for attention, that figures he's going to be a hero. That's kind of, so again, politicians need to be much more responsible. Media needs to be much more responsible in what they're saying. In all these hateful politicians that are spewing nothing but hatred, by the way, on both sides, they should all be censured. And if they don't stop that divisiveness, they should be removed from office. I really believe that.
Yeah, one thing, listen, you're totally right about that. And here's the thing, I'll take it even bigger, further. I think it's godly versus ungodly. I think media and everybody who acts in a certain way, like Satan only comes to steal, deceive, and destroy. And a lot of deceit in the things they're putting out on the media is all to deceive people. Hey, he's somebody who he's not, right? It's very troubling. But I feel like because I have this, I see it so clearly. So I don't get upset about it. I'm just like, no, they don't know. The most I can do is like pray for people like that. Like at the end of the day, like you can't reason with them. It's almost, I believe, like I really believe in George Soros, and he has Robert Brokers says, hello, Tony and Jeff. Oh, on Twitter. Do you know?
Hey,
Rob?
there he is. What's up, Rob? Good to see you, man.
Yeah, you have a great thing. But my point in saying this is all these people have such a what's the word? I don't want to put it in a way. They're so decisive that it's got to be more like, I really personally believe humans, like you go out here, we go out on the street, nobody's going to crash into each other or try and crash into stuff, right? So like I hear, but by the way, there might be left, right, Democrat, Republican, saved, unsaved, right? Godly, ungodly people driving. They just don't want to hurt each other. Got it? They want to have their own car and everything. Like you don't have too many people. Where in the inner cities where there's people killing each other, where there's murder and other things, I believe it's a lot of evil. Like you really go down to it when we have these mass shootings, right? It's crazy because some of the things that so get masked, swept under the rug when they don't work, like Trump's assassination with that kid, is ridiculous. Like they want the JFK. Joe Rogan was saying, he's like, I don't want the JFK files. He's already dead. He's saying, I want the Trump files of who that kid was, who was on the roof, who's a registered Republican, who then the kid was a martyr for some reason. They talked him into something, and he was in a BlackRock commercial, and nobody's talking about that. And you're right, by them feeding all this stuff. And by the way, I'll personally say this. I've said this before about Trump. Trump has a lot of that high D. He's like Grant Cardone. He's like he's that high D guy where he's gonna lead with just saying stuff and it's gonna ruffle wrong feathers, right? Those type of people are a little bit arrogant and they leave a whirlwind of danger. Same thing with Grant. I love Grant, but he kind of, I'm like, Grant, what are you doing? I love Trump too. I'm like, dude, what are you doing sometimes? Okay. But they get results done. These guys, these are drivers. These are the sales guys. They do get results done. And even with this whole terrorist thing, with him coming out with And by the way, he's doing the art of the deal fully, but 25%, so egregious. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like I get it, but like we have to go that thing. But he's gonna do it his way, right? That's how he's gonna do it. And because of that, you know, and a lot of the talks too, when Trump says, I might not leave office, maybe we get 8 years. He says this
He's
stuff.
just agitating. He's just shaking stuff up.
Trump, Grant does the same stuff. I have a little bit of that in me. But my point in saying that, I wouldn't be shocked, by the way. I wouldn't be shocked because Trump has built such a name, his name ever, if he doesn't want a dynasty of his kids. This is how this happens. But this is nothing new. This happens with King Charles, right? And other things. It takes one leader for this to happen, and they want their lineage of kids. And Donald Trump Jr. is the next one in, and they run it that way, right? So I just wouldn't be shocked on that. But here's the thing. The one that has the biggest tyranny of people not leaving in dictators is the freaking Congress with no term limits. They've been in there forever. The reason why the company is, I remember watching C-SPAN with my mom. We used to have to balance the budget. They were lining their own pockets with money, right? And I don't even hate them for it because, Tony, if me and you were in like a business then and we could have got our job fired, like training days and stuff, humans are just naturally corrupt. Even Christians and people believe in God, they're probably some of the most corrupt people, right? Satan gets to them.
Organized religion.
Yeah, Scientology, whatever you want to say it in. There's always corruption at any level of people saying stuff, right? So my point in saying that is I come with a thing. I inspire this. I don't hate anybody. I just like to call it for what it is, right? And right now, like, there's a lot of things that they want us to talk about. We'll talk about them, but I also want to talk about the contrasting thing of what we can do now to do it. When you got a lot of people in here, look at you. Your title, same here, big problems, right? I think the title changed. Personally, I love it, and I'm not even officially American. That's Robert.
Yeah, and Michelle is actually in France, actually. So, you know, the title that we're talking about, and so going back to what you're saying, yes, I agree. There's things that are said just to stir stuff up and to stay in the news. And by the way, this whole legacy thing is nothing new. George Walker Bush, then George W. Bush, and then Jeb Bush tried to run for office. That's nothing new, and there's nothing wrong with that. The reality is, I don't think that Trump is a dictator, but if you repeat that over and over again, people start to believe it. If you repeat a lie often enough, it becomes a truth in the minds of many. But as an example, so Michelle's here from France, and he can attest to it. Michelle, if you could, and his English isn't great, but so I'm going to try to see if I can get an answer from him. How much would it cost to buy a new pair of Levi's jeans in Paris? If you can put that down here, and this is just an explanation on tariffs, because, and we're just going to go back to tariffs for a little bit, because again, a big thing that they're saying that he's a dictator and everything else is because of how he's trying to move through and push things through that people don't want. But tariffs, there's a lot of people say that tariffs don't work, and I say they do work. And if they didn't work, why do other countries charge us such high tariffs? Right? They charge us really high tariffs because they do work, and people don't understand that. Oh, there we go. That's sorry. That's the camera when I speak with my hands. People don't understand that tariffs are what are actually funding socialist countries. And if Michelle doesn't answer, I'm gonna respond to it. In France or anywhere in Europe, you want to go buy a pair of nice Levi's, they're going to cost between 180 and 200 euros. We'll just call it 180 to $200 to make that a little bit more reasonable. Those same jeans here are between $35 and $40. So does that mean that store owner in France or anywhere in Europe is making $160? No, that means that the government is probably with 100 or 150% tariffs on those same jeans, and therefore people want American products, but they can't afford to buy them because, you know, look, Michelle says they're more than 200 euros for a pair of $40 Levi's jeans. It's more than $40, and that's how the tariffs work. Yes, it is the individual person that buys, they're paying the tax. This is true. The tariff is borne by that, but
by the way, in 1913,
negotiation,
we used to only operate by tariffs. Now, like, we didn't have all that, right? So like if we could go back to that, it would probably be better anyway, you know? And like it would, because the IRS is all corrupt, right? Like, everything's corrupt over here. Like, America's corrupt is way at the top. The thing when I was in Colombia, their corruption's everywhere. You can pay off a cop, no problem, right? You're not really supposed to, but you can. They act like it's all that Mexico. You pay off cops. Here you can't do that because there's no corruption down at the bottom, but there's all this corruption on the top. So my point in saying that is every country is corrupt. The one thing great about America is we have capitalism. We have freedom. Because of that, we are big economic. Pure default, which I do want to talk about this, we have stores these products, whatever this product, let's see if there's any canola oil in here. We put all these horrible red dyes and stuff in here just to kill America, put them on patients and do the treatment, right? And when you because there's money, the end of, and this is what the Lord fears about, but when it's greed and there's money involved, especially whether it's in solar, whether it's in longevity, which now I'm in these clients, and there's money, because there's a lot of money in this, there's a lot of corruption. So in a lot of health, there's a lot of money in health. Oh, get into healthcare, that. And it's to treat the patients of cancer is better than curing them of cancer, right?
Oh, 100%. There's no money in the cure. There's only money in the treatment. And that's why, listen, do I believe that there's a cure for cancer out there? It's likely. Do I believe there's a cure for AIDS out there?
Just study Gary Brecka. Just did Gary Brecka or Roberto Mondolfi or all these guys in these longevity spaces. I didn't know about this. And there's more nurses mass exiting the actual stuff to work for these longevity because they went there and signed up and went to this whole degree to learn to take care of lives and realize that they're actually killing people. With the stuff they're doing is not helping them. And they are now having a max exodus. And with Make America Healthy Again and Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's had this whole max exodus, there's this whole thing. It's happening right now. There's more clinics. There's 2 clinics opening up here in Miami. One's Next Health and this Healthy Longevity Clinic that I know. And there's going to be more because now everybody realizes that you really can treat stuff before it happens. It's not, you don't need to like die, even though there's money on it. And now it's so crazy because we're actually getting through. Trump won, RFK's in there. They just canceled red dyes today. Like we're winning.
Well, it's okay. Well, hold on. They're going to phase it out by 2026. But let's talk about that for a second. So red dye 40, the yellow this, the blue that. There's so many things, just as an example. And let me go back to finish my thought on tariffs so that we don't jump too much, and then we'll come back to the red dyes in a minute. So the tariffs, you're right. Prior to 1913, there was no IRS, and everything was done on tariffs. There are people that say, well, America was a lot smaller then. Yeah, they also consumed a lot less. So, now we're consuming that much more. The tariffs play a bigger role. With that said, at least 50 countries have already come back to the negotiating table to negotiate with Trump. This is really about MAGA, making America great again, bringing back manufacturing, because the reason that China sells as much as they do is because the tariffs are so low for them. So their product, they're already paying pennies on the dollar to pay for their employees to make the product. So we can't compete there. And then it comes here and we have higher tax rates on our stuff than there are on foreign imports. So it really is about tariffs work. Let's just say that tariffs work, and our American products aren't sold at the frequency that they are in Europe because the tariffs are so high in other places of the world. So that's important to understand and recognize that. Now, to go back to the red dyes and the Maha.
Well, actually, let's do this.
Isn't it ironic that?
Because here's the thing. This is on True Social. Are you on True Social or no?
I am. I don't go on there that often, but I am.
Neither I. My brother always sends me tweets from it. But in particular, active morning on True Social, President Donald Trump said Boeing should default China for not taking planes that it had committed to purchase. The president has alternated between taking a hard line on tariffs targeting Chinese imports, causing markets to plummet, and then having to soothe Wall Street by claiming U.S. and China negotiations are in progress or being made. Beijing denies any knowledge of such negotiations, calling his claims groundless as they're trying to catch wind. They have no factual basis. A spokesperson for China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs said China's attitude is consistent and clear. If you want to fight, we will fight to the end. If you want to talk, the door is open. Meanwhile, a dozen states are suing the Trump administration over reckless and insane tariff policies. The states argue that the policy was based on a whim and would be added burden to consumers. This comes as the president warned he could reimpose higher tariffs as previously paused in 2 weeks. This is obviously the Independent, but the reason why I want to read articles, I think it gives contents of what people see. Let me actually stop sharing this now. And just to kind of close up on the tariffs thing before we go into red dye, and I'll build an article on that. listen, I do think Trump did it at a whim. I really do. But I also think that's the way it needs to get done. Like, one thing I like Vivek about, Vivek was going to come in and cancel and every odd number and just clean house, right? As a business owner myself, right? You kind of got to make some unemotional decisions and then deal with the consequences, as bad as they are anyway. And here's the craziest thing. The producers like me and you, Tony, and stuff, and the skilled people with skilling in AI are going to rise to the top. The people are going to, and that's still, you took all the money in the world. Everybody wants to be socialist and shit. You'd pass it all around. If you kept the rules the same, which they're trying to change, all the rich people would wind up with the money because they had better money habits. All the poor people with poor money habits would wind there, right? And it's
always the way it is. And by the way, socialism is great until you run out of everybody else's money. That's just what happens, because it takes money to fund all those social programs. And the reason those social programs are able to work, first of all, they still fleece the public, but the tariffs are so high from other countries. That's how they're funding their governments, as part of it anyway. So again, we got to understand that everything's a negotiation. Everything, my friends, in life is a negotiation. And Trump, like it or not, is one hell of a negotiator. He's bringing people to the table to negotiate. Venezuela didn't want to take any of their MS-13 people back, or any of the illegal immigrants sending back. They said they're refusing them. It says, oh, no problem. We're not going to send you the billions of dollars of aid that you get from the American taxpayer. Guess what? All of a sudden, the airport opened. So everything in life is a negotiation, every single thing. And we have to remember that in our own lives, everything's a negotiation. You negotiate with yourself in the morning. You wake up, you're tired. Am I going to stay in bed? Am I going to get up? Well, I have to get up because of this or that or the other thing. Everything in life is a negotiation. It is about the carrot and it is about the stick. If you don't take the carrot, I'm going to give you the stick. That's just the way it is. And then you get the stick, like, oh, I'll take the carrot. Okay, grab the carrot. I'll stop giving you the stick. It's a carrot and a stick. And people will do much more to avoid pain than they will to gain pleasure. That's just the way it is, right? People will.
Edward, if we're listening to this, Edward, clip that. That's the Tonyism where Tony goes off on these things. If you don't know Tony, see someone says, amen. Tony, you have a God-given gift, and I'm not just saying this, that riles me up. Like, I get on calls with you, there's nobody around. I'm so glad we're doing this live. I know this is just like the last thing that we did, because there's so many nuggets that you say like that is so true, dude. Life is a negotiation. I'm thinking about today, I'm negotiating between this girl. If I should date her, I should buy her next gym thing. And she at first I thought she wanted to get married. I just spent all the time in Vegas with her. Look, I put on my close friends. You see this little,
maybe she just wants the honeymoon. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I know. I think she does just want the honeymoon.
So listen, in the same vein, and I'm going to drop another quote on you that Edward put together and just posted on social media the other day. Most people will run away from what they want faster than they'll run towards what they do want. And if what they want is over here, what they fear is over here, they'll actually run this way. They'll run the opposite way, where if they ran the other way, they'd actually get what they want. But people will run away. They'll do more to avoid pain than they will to gain pleasure. And that's an important thing to remember. And in negotiation, even in this tariff war, even with Zelensky and Putin and everything else, Zelensky right now it's evident that he doesn't want to end the war, because by ending the war, the money stops coming in, and the pain, he's not the one actually feeling the pain. His countrymen are, his people are, not him. Him and his generals and all the high brass, they've all been taking money and buying houses in Malibu and buying houses in the French Riviera and everywhere else. It's actually really good for them. So he that's why he's avoiding coming to the table. That's just an opinion. I don't know Zelensky, and I'm not a huge fan of Putin, but just from the outside looking in and understanding that whole pain and pleasure thing. So it's just interesting what's happening. It's just interesting what's happening. And by the way, Robert, tell us more about what just elaborate, if you will, on what you're curious about. But now, just jumping while he types in his question, just to jump into the other thing you were talking about, is all the chemicals and dyes that are in our food.
Let's actually pull up. So every time we talk a new thing, this is what we do. We pull up an article on it, and then we discuss it. Sounds good?
You type faster than I do, so you pull the article, and I'll post it.
News. So we'll do the one from, and by the way, all these, we need more conservative or more right leaning, because if you look at just searching news, I'm serious, we have more people in here. If I
No,
look at the news,
but
and
by the way,
yeah,
I'm laughing. I'm laughing because Robert was asking the potential lady friend. That's what he wanted. He was curious
oh
more
yeah,
about.
no, we'll get it. By the way, one thing I want to say that my brother never did, which I want to do more of. I used to always share my own news. Like I met Brian Tracy, and I would always share my stuff in there, and that's how we built a following on Clubhouse back in the day before I shut down to promote. Because me and my brother did a show on Clubhouse in the morning. At the same time that Breakfast of Champs was Glenn Lundy, and someone said I was stealing Glenn Lundy's thunder, and I shouldn't do a show at the same time. And I didn't know who that was. And I went to a show. I met Glenn. I like Glenn, and I stopped my show, which I wish I never did actually. But if we go, let's go into I don't know how much my brother, 8 artificial dyes. So we'll go to US Today. So there's going to be 8 artificial dyes that will be phased out of US foods. Health security applies, they say. So 8 artificial dyes will be eliminated from medications and the nation's food supply by the end of 2026, including foods found in candy, ice cream, soft drinks, jams, according to Health and Human Services. These artificial dyes, detailed during April 22nd news conference in Washington, are used to offset color and loss. Did you know they put they put color in oranges? Did you know that?
They put color in everything, and here's the problem. So they are going to be phasing out a lot of things by 2026, right? That's when they're looking to phase these things out. But we have to remember that that all of these colors. So Kellogg's, it was in the news a couple of weeks ago that Kellogg's actually Fruit Loops in particular, and well, we'll talk about Fruit Loops. There's a few others, but I can't remember the names right now. The same factory that made Fruit Loops with all the red 40s and all the dyes and all the bad shit in it, the same factory made that for the U.S. market, made a healthier version. So instead of using red 40, they would use beet juice to color the red cereal for the cereal that they were sending to Canada. So the same factory is manufacturing 2 products, one that's unhealthy for the American public, one that is healthy for Canada. And that's happening in a lot of different places. There's stuff that's banned in Europe that we're still using here. As a perfect example, last time I was in France, Michelle and I actually hung out, and we went to a Burger King. I don't know if it was Michelle or if it was with his brother Jean-Luc. I think Michelle was there, and we had McDonald's, and I did have a Heineken with the McDonald's at the McDonald's, which is interesting. But I say that because
beer at the McDonald's.
Yeah, you can get beer anywhere in Europe.
Where was that?
I'm not, probably outside of Paris somewhere. I'm not sure.
Exactly. I like alcohol. I don't drink anymore. So I always say this: drinking leads to dancing. Dancing leads to women. Women leads to hanging out with them and losing all my money. Right?
Live a little, buddy. Live a little.
Yeah, I live a little. But like, here's the thing. And by the way, if I ever became president, I would actually look at like shutting down a lot of the bars, shutting down the liquor things. Not that you're going to do it, but like, I just feel like when it's so open expressive, they're called spirits for a reason. And I love it. By the way, I love beer. I'm just saying this because I know my own. I know what I can become. And you give me a beer, I'm having a good time with you, and I'm not going to become what I was called to do. And by the way, I say this, and Jesus drank wine, right? So even in that sense, I say that. But the one thing I will say is, you had Heineken at McDonald's. That's cool.
Yeah, at a McDonald's. So, and I bring that up. And by the way, Michelle just said it was in Paris.
Wow.
So the funny thing is, you know what's in French fries in France? French fries. You know what's in French fries at McDonald's?
No.
Potatoes, salt, and oil. That's it. 3 ingredients. You know what's in McDonald's fries in the U.S.? There's 17 ingredients, including 4 salts, one of which is an aluminum salt. So there's 3 or 4 different types of seed oils that they fry it in. There's sugars. There's 3 or 4 different types of sugars. There's 17 things in McDonald's fries. In Europe, there's 3. So, and the same thing, as an example, Monsanto, with glyphosate, which is Roundup. Roundup is illegal in Europe now. One of the reasons that Europe doesn't buy American breads or grains or anything else is because we use Roundup. It's not Roundup, it's glyphosate. But what they do is they've discovered in the late 80s or early 80s, whenever it was, that when they would have a harvest, a yield of crop, there was always a percentage that wasn't fully dried yet. So when they'd put it in the silos, they would have some losses because of the green grain. Well, they figured that they diluted 1 part glyphosate to 4 parts water, and they sprayed it with the crop duster. Next week, everything's dead, except they've now put a cancer-causing agent into our wheats, our barleys, our grains, which is why, by the way, everybody's got a food allergy. Everybody's got a gluten allergy now. And it's in big part because of glyphosate, because you can go.
By the way, you know where I first heard that? I was a bartender in Bar Taco, a guy named Scott who could rap. We were talking about the gluten-free menu. He goes, "Oh, don't get me started about that." And he said the name of the company. What's the name of the company with an M?
Monsanto.
Monsanto. I used to always say it like a different company. I used to say it was horrible. Monsanto. I used to say it something different. But I remember hearing that, researching it, go down a whole YouTube rabbit hole and being like, man, this
is crazy. You know what Monsanto also is? Not only are they the chemical company that provides pesticides and insecticides and everything else, they're also the largest seed bank in the world, which is crazy. So there's a whole lot of problems that we've got, but this is one of the reasons that Europe doesn't take any of our grain. They don't even take a lot of our meats and beef and everything else because of that, because we feed them modified GMO grain and everything else. That's why listen, and I know we're hopping all over the place. This is the first show, so be patient with us, my friends. Let's just say this, that the United States, we represent, I think, 8%, and somebody correct me, it's between 7 and 9. I think it's 8% of the world population, the global population. We consume 95% of all pharmaceuticals manufactured, yet we're still the unhealthiest country, or among the unhealthiest countries of the world, where we have everything that we should not only be the healthiest people because we spend the most on healthcare, we should be the most educated people because we spend the most on education, but we don't have healthcare, we have sick care. And our education system is failing us miserably. You ask people, what's the capital of the United States, and they'll say New York City. And I love those men on the street interviews. They'll say New York City. They're like, you're right. Because our system is failing us. But yeah, these are the same people that are self-righteous, and they're the ones that are, banging on the doors and knocking things over and breaking things and protesting. And hell, even our protesters are fake. There's a picture of a woman that is always at every protest anywhere in the country. She's at the protest, right? Because they're paid protesters. It's
all paid for, man. Elon Musk tweeted out that they pay for people. I mean, heck, dude, the economy's not the best. If you paid me to go out there and I didn't have any dignity, I would go out there and hold a sign and act.
Dude, it's $200-300.
Did you see Elon Musk? They pay. Did you see what he put? Like, they say what you should do. Don't join this. Don't do this. Did you see that whole tweet on it or no?
I didn't. I got to look for it.
Yeah, we'll show that on next show, because this isn't going to be the first time it was there. Actually, that's one thing me and my brother used to do. We used to go on Twitter and get a lot of our news from Twitter back in the day. Now it's X. It was actually before he bought it. See if I can get in. But we're actually hitting the top hour. It's lunchtime. This got a lot later. I got to go to the DMV. You got to go to the DMV. By the way, can I give my secrets on how to get in the DMV without being a hot girl?
Do it. Let's go, because you're not a hot girl.
Yes, and I got
take a hot girl with you.
No problem.
Take my wife.
We might do that today, actually. That same lady. But she's, who knows. But what I do is everything's a story. Okay, the marketing storytelling. So I look at the person in control. I make them feel in control. If someone at the DMV feels like they need to have a lot of control, you give them that control right away. You give them that power, and you thank them, because most people in the DMV are not thanked and they're taught about like they're the problem. Okay, you thank them like they're a military student, and you go into the next DMV and you believe this. There's going to be one person who's like the AccuS person, and there's going to be one leader who keeps everybody in line. You want to get good with the leader person, but you want to get good with the person too, because that person has influence over that person. Okay, if you go to it, it won't. So I went up to the DMV. I'll tell this really quick. This is when I got my license. And I told the story about those who don't know me, I told the story about my brother. I said, hey, I finally moved to Florida. I'm here. I'm in the land of opportunity. For me, I came from Connecticut. You ever been in Connecticut? Ask them a question. No. Oh, it's horrible. Don't go. Right? They say it that way. I said, you lived here your whole life? Wow, you're so lucky. I'm here to build a coffee shop music studio. I lost it on my brother. I was so scared to get my license here because I didn't think I could ever make it here. But I'm getting my license because I started my business. And I said, I'm going to do this. It's going to be a coffee shop. Oh, where's it going to be? Oh, it's going to be in Midtown, right? This is exactly what I did. I said, but I don't know if I have all the right papers. And I didn't. And they said, do you have an appointment? And I said, no. And then I wound up talking Spanish to the other guy behind him. And I went in front of him. And then I wound up going over, not having an appointment, not even having all the right materials. Okay. Which is, no, you got to have all that stuff. Right. But I told it to him. I had 2 of the 3. You need 3. I have all 3 this time because I knew. I go, the person then tells the story to me. Hey, this man, he doesn't have an appointment, but he's here. Blah, blah, he's going to do that. And then I did a shout out tag on them, on the person, because everybody wants to feel special. Okay. That's the whole thing. Significance, everybody wants. And then I said to the person, wow, I appreciate you so much. I know you have a rule to run, everything in here. This is great. Boom. I was in and out in like probably 20, 30 minutes. I went, got my picture, got my license. Cool. Well, so part of me when I lost my license in Vegas, because when you're in love or you like somebody, you get all flighty, you lose some stuff, right? She said to me, you're 39, you got to get your life together. And I was like, hey, I've never lost my license. I've never lost my whole wallet, right, in Vegas. But in that moment, I thought, man, let's see how it is round 2, go and get my DMV. So we're going to do that today. Hopefully I've been trying to do it all morning, but because I'm a consultant and I'm on calls with the longevity clinic, I can never get out of this little space. And I feel like I'm in Florida. I might as well be in a closet,
Yeah, I hear you. And I just realized it's already 1:16.
I know. By the way, this is what our coaching sessions, sometimes don't even get to, like, we talk about all this and then we get to the last half hour. So I think what we'll do every Thursday at like 10, I got to see, or maybe 8:30, whatever, what time works for you?
I say 10 o'clock is probably the best time because it gives people, if we're trying to hit different time zones, that's a good time, 7 a.m.
Okay, so I have paid consulting calls at 10 o'clock.
At 10 o'clock. Okay.
Yeah, which is like, I could still, like, it's my life. Like,
can you do 11 o'clock Eastern?
Yeah, and then the longevity clinic now wants to do a daily 11 o'clock meeting. So we could do 9.
Well, we'll figure it out. Stay tuned. Bottom line, friends, stay tuned. We'll be posting about it, and we'll let you know when it's going to be. But it will likely be on a Thursday, because again, we're already having these conversations on a Thursday morning anyway. So maybe it'll be a Thursday at 12 o'clock. We just jump in for an hour, and it gives me time to say what I got to say. We'll jump out. We'll try to keep it at 45 minutes because I know that an hour sometimes is a little tough, but it's hard to keep conversations going or rather keep them down to only 1 hour. But what we'll do is we'll go single subject. Maybe we'll hit a second subject only. So we'll keep it a little bit tighter. But this is the kind of stuff we're going to be talking about. These are the conversations that we need to have. And I encourage everybody to have these conversations with your family or your friends at the very least. Don't avoid the conversations, because by avoiding the conversation, things just run amok. And many people think, well, they're not going to be able to understand. Oh, thanks, Jeff. They're not going to be able to understand. They don't think like me. You'd be surprised how many people actually really do think like you, right? A lot of people think like you. You just don't think about it. And unless you talk about it, you don't know. Right. And a lot of people are just confused. Like I kind of educated that gentleman from Nigeria and he gave me a different perspective. He was like, man, I never thought about it, but yeah, it actually makes sense. The system is inundated with the immigration issues that they're having now. So it's just about understanding. And I'm not saying that I'm always right. And I'm not saying that I'm always wrong. I'm saying that a sign of intelligence is the ability to entertain listening to someone else's opinion to get new information and then make a decision based on the information that you have, right? It's the ability to change your mind when presented with new facts. Yet in today's world, facts don't matter, right? People are just so they're so consumed by what their belief system is that they refuse to acknowledge what actually is. So keep an open mind. Practice suspending your own belief in whatever it is that you feel so you can listen with an open mind to what's being presented to you, and then you make a decision. So that's all I got to say about that.
And with that said, that's Tony Rodriguez of the Get Up and Grow movement. He is by far a high performance. Dude, you're a business consultant. You were telling me yesterday you were breaking down the contract people are a connector. You're the CEO of Get Up and Grow movement. You also dabble into some real estate. You know more about real estate than half the people who pretend they know about it, with a broker and owner in EXP. And then obviously you've spoken many times. You're a dynamic speaker. So I look forward to doing this more with you. Follow him here. Send him a DM, guys. He's going to have another next level masterclass coming up soon. Now that we're getting back plugged in. And then Edward will have cut up. Maybe we'll put these on collab posts. Also, I will say we're going to go over some other stuff here. I switched back, Tony. I was doing Jeff J. Cunningham, and the girl, do you know Melissa Waggy of Epic Talks?
Yeah.
So she was like, no, you got to be Jeff the Entrepreneur. She's like, so many people come to my event and said, I founded this event and I bought it because Jeff the Entrepreneur. And then the first thing I thought is, man, I'm such a connector. I didn't even like, and she's like, fill out this affiliate link so you can get paid on these, right? And I didn't. But we're building out the 8-figure brand. We just did content in Boca for everything. We're getting a whole bunch of messages now. It is late. We both go to DMV. But one thing I do want to say is you're going to see a lot more of me and Tony doing a lot more stuff together. We'll host more events here. He came down for one that I do monthly. I do monthly events. You should start doing them in Jersey too. Every month. I normally get anywhere between 7 to 12 people. And now we're going to be packing an event August 7th, 8th, and 9th. I don't know how, 2,500 people, Expo Domination Conference. So
awesome. Yeah, lots of great stuff coming up. And by the way, I am going to be setting up for late May a free 4-day challenge. It'll be an hour and a half per day for 4 days to help you tap into the next level of your life, of your business, of your relationships, of you, because the next level of you, my friends, the next level of your life is going to demand the next level of you. So with that said, follow Jeff the Entrepreneur. Give me a follow as well. We look forward to seeing you guys again next week and connecting with you throughout the week. Any questions? And by the way, suggestions, ideas for topics, we're here to talk about it. And again, this is going to be social issues. This is going to be politics. This is going to be a little economics. It's going to be a little bit of everything, but also open to doing more shows throughout the week. And give us some suggestions. What do you want to hear? What do you want us to talk about? And we will tackle it. And by the way, we will bring, as Jeff did today, because he types faster than me. So whatever we talk about, we're going to be providing an article or some information to back up whatever we're talking about. So thank you again for being here, Jeff. Appreciate you, brother. And yeah, let's have a kick-ass week. Remember, it's Thursday. It's almost the end of the week. And remember, my friends,
well, I'm going to the
strong
Philippines
weekend. You need a strong end of the week. What's that?
I'll be in the Philippines next week. We'll do the show from the Philippines, hopefully. All right.
All right. Excellent. Excellent. All right. Peace out. Appreciate you guys. Don't go anywhere, Jeff. See you guys.